and several of the guys were around, and then Happy Humphrey had came into the Kansas or St. Joe area at that time. Was headquartered in 90% out of St. Joe, and when Humphrey came in, his driver got sick. So I spent the next 3.5, maybe 4 months going more places and driving more miles than I had at any point in time till then. And that's how I kind of got involved in it.
Well, that's when I met you, and I think you were driving wrestlers back and forth from St. Joe to Kansas City, and at that point I think you were driving Happy Humphrey.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
I think one of the highlights, and this is Bob Geigle Harley talking, I think one of the highlights you and I have ever had in wrestling was the streaker.
No, wait a minute. But Harley, this is Tom talking. Tom Andrews.
Hey, Tom.
And I have to tell a little story here. One night.
Don't go away, Bob.
Yeah, sit still, Bob. One night, I got whacked over the head with a chair, and it was split open pretty good. I was wrestling under the mask then, and we got back in the dressing room, and you looked at it and you said, you know, Tom, I'm not much of a stitch man, but you need stitches in that. So I stopped at the hospital, and the doctor had trouble stitching it up. It was gaped open so wide, the suture material kept pulling through the skin. So he said, I've got to go find some cell cloth thread. And he came back and he finally got it stitched together. I had about 10, 12 stitches in there. And I put a little pad on it and put my mask on and wrestled with it every night. And about 2 weeks later, the stitches are starting to itch real bad and ready to come out. So we're up in St. Joe, and I made the mistake of saying, I've got to have these stitches taken out tomorrow. I got to go see the doctor. And you and Bob said, oh, sit down. We can take those stitches out. I said, are you sure? Oh, yeah, we can. So I sat down in the chair, and you started. And man, it felt like you were pulling half of my scalp out. And everybody sitting around laughing and snickering. What are you doing? Oh, sit still, sit still. And you kept on and kept on. And then they finally told me what happened after. You guys were cutting those stitches and pulling the knot through. And let me tell you what, it wasn't very comfortable. But that's why I love you guys. You were a lot of fun to be around.
Harley, I don't even remember that, do you?
Truthfully, no, I don't.
Well, it is the truth.
Well, Harley, I've heard the story about the streaker so many times from Bob Geigle, but I haven't heard your version. So you tell us your version about the streaker in Memorial Hall in Kansas City, Kansas.
Well, there isn't a whole hell of a lot to tell other than a young lady with a fairly large, you-know-what, decided that, and I think she was kind of prompted by the guy sitting next to you to gather some attention and see how much she could gather if she, not only did she streak, but she did it right up on the stage where anybody in the building had a great view. And to this day, I don't think she's ever been caught. And I think you got Bob Geigle to thank for that part of it.
Well, about a half an hour later, she came back into the wrestling match. About a half hour later.
Yeah.
And the police officer says, is that the girl over there? Is that the girl over there? I looked at which one? Which one? He said, the one over there sitting over there. He pointed her out. I said, gosh, I don't know, Harley. I mean, officer. And I said, I have no idea. This girl's got clothes on. I couldn't recognize her. How many stories are there to tell about these guys here? Roger, coming up ahead, you were gone for quite a few years before you came back to Memorial Hall spot.
Yeah, I think when we did that thing a few months ago, that's the first time I saw Roger actually involved in the wrestling part of it since he went to work for the Star. I don't know if that's true or not, but it's the first time that I saw him involved in anything.
Well, Roger, is that fairly true?
Yes, he is. But actually what people don't realize is that as a professional wrestler, we traveled so much, and I spent actually very little time of my 21 years in professional wrestling here in Kansas City. I totally traveled all over the world. I was here a little bit in '68, and then I come back in early '70, a little bit in '70, and then I left again, come back in '72, part of '73, and then I left and never come back until 1982. But in between, I made numerous trips to Japan. I lived in Puerto Rico. I lived in Canada, lived in Mexico. So I spent a tremendous amount of time out of the country. And my last trip out of the country, I went to South Africa in 1985 before I retired. So the good thing for me, and I love Kansas City, and when I decided to retire from professional wrestling, I retired here in Kansas City. I just had an opportunity to go to work for the Kansas City Star, and I never left. I still live here, and I just love Kansas City area.
Well, Roger, during this period of time, you set a world record for weightlifting. Can you just briefly tell us about that?
Yes. I got involved in powerlifting and weightlifting actually as soon as I started wrestling back in the early '60s. But as time went on, and then I met more people and more training partners in 1977, September of 1977. I was working out at the gym, and Arthur Jones, who invented the Nautilus equipment, made a special machine, because the Nautilus leg press machine they had at the gym, I could just sit and do reps with it. So the owner of the gym and people called Arthur Jones and invented it, and he made a special machine. And he said it's physically impossible for anybody to press the whole stack because it was 2,800 pounds. Well, I grew up with can't does not exist. So as soon as he said it cannot be done, I said, oh, wanna bet? So about 6 or 8 months went by, and I just kept pushing and pushing and pushing and training. And the unique thing about weightlifting, the body only operates on about 23% of its mental capacity. So I got in the right frame of mind, and I leg pressed the whole 2,800 pounds. Well, this got Arthur Jones excited. It got Steve and Mark, two of my trainers, and the owner of Normandale Sports and Health, excited. And they went to the Minneapolis wrestling office, and we set it up. It was all filmed, documented, submitted to Guinness Book of World Record, and you know, it was in there for several years, and I don't know if it's still there or not. I just, you know, to me it was just another day at the gym, but it was just a fantastic time. And in powerlifting, I also competed in powerlifting as a 242 pound class,